Hey, my name's Kayla Conan. If you don't know me well, I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. So I have all sorts of fun little tools and tips and tricks that I like to share, that I share with my clients when they're in my chair. So hypnosis, it's not what you think it is. And one of these days I'll record a video that kind of gets into what some of that stuff is. But for today, I wanted to share a quick tip that I use all the time, that my kids use, that's super helpful. So I'm on my way to a wedding rehearsal, in the rehearsal dinner, and I am weirdly super stressed out about it. So there's all sorts of stuff going on with the world and the community and everything else right now, and I think that just adds to it. And for me, at least, it also has a tendency to kind of add or, heighten sort of anxious feelings and anxiety that I feel about other stuff that I think I wouldn't normally feel. So anyway, I thought I would share with you one of my really quick tips. So that is, it's called bilateral stimulation is the fancy name for it. I'll just add that my dogs have been super quiet for the last 2 hours. And as soon as I get to recording something, here they are. Got to make a noise. So anyway, bilateral stimulation. The thing that I think is super cool about this is that you can really do it anytime, anywhere. You can do it in the boardroom. You can do it in the car. It doesn't really matter. All you have to do is have an object, just a small object. I happen to have an apple here handy, so I'll just use that. You can use your phone. You can use your keys, just whatever you have handy. So basically what you want to do is just take a nice deep breath right now, just to kind of feel into a time where maybe you feel a little heightened sense of stress or heightened sense of anxiety. So that could be scrolling through Facebook. That could be because you hear the news on the background or something else entirely. But anyway, just kind of tap into that feeling. You won't have to do that in the future when you actually use this trick. But this is just so right now you can kind of get a feel for how quickly this does work. So anyway, take a moment, kind of tap into a time or, that feeling of anxiety that we can sometimes get. I usually feel it kind of right here in my chest where you see my hand. So anyway, so the first thing that I want you to do is just tap into that feeling. Notice what that's like. Notice what that feels like in your body. And then what I want you to notice is that you can kind of turn it up a notch. So just see if you can turn it up just one notch. Don't get super crazy, but just turn it up a notch. And notice how interesting that is when you can turn it up a notch, that we actually can control that feeling sometimes. So sometimes it's not really always apparent to us. But anyway, so it's interesting to me that we can kind of turn that up a notch. So then what I want you to do is go ahead and take your object, whatever that is. And again, for me, I'm using this apple here. So you're going to take this object and you're just going to pass it back and forth across in front of you. So you're going to hand it to your other hand, kind of in the middle of you, down this meridian line. So we're just going to do this for a few moments and just pass it back and forth. It feels kind of silly, which is great. So if you can get a little chuckle out of your kids or whatever when they're doing it, that actually allows us to send just a little bit of dopamine running through the body, which is something that also helps to sort of combat anxiety. So anyway, we're going to pass this back and forth. And the reason that this works, the reason that this is working now, is that anxiety and stress can only live on one side of the brain. It can only live on one side of the brain at a time. So what happens when we begin to pass this back and forth, when we begin to engage both sides of the body, is that that little ball of anxiety, that little feeling of stress just can't hold on. So you'll find that it begins to dissipate. So just doing this for a few more moments. And then you can go ahead and stop and set down your object, but just take a nice deep breath. And then just check in for a moment and notice the difference. And sometimes, especially for my kids, that's really all it takes. It's just one time through. Sometimes we notice that maybe we took that sort of anxiety level from maybe an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe it went from an 8 down to a 6, and that's really pretty impressive and pretty fantastic. A lot of times people will notice it may go from an 8 all the way down to a 2. And for you, it may be something else entirely, but just kind of breathe into that for a moment. And if you need to do it again, you just pick up that object and do it again, passing it back and forth. And again, the reason that this is working is that anxiety, that stress feeling just cannot hold on when we engage both sides of the body. Just a little bit of science there for you. So just taking a moment, passing it back and forth just a few more times, noticing what that feels like as that old feeling begins to just dissipate. Breathing deeply as you set down that object and just noticing the difference. And again, I love to use this in the car. Again, it's something you can use in the boardroom. That's not super obvious. You can even kind of just pass things. You can't see my hands because they're under the table, but you can kind of pass things back and forth under the table if that makes you feel better. And I would really encourage you to just try this with your kids too. If you have kids at home, just to kind of let them give it a whirl. It can feel a little silly, but it is something, it absolutely works. Even if it just takes things down a notch, that's really all we need to start heading down to that more calm path and really get things going the right direction. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to answer them, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.